Thank you. I'll start with my presentation. We have already lost like 10 minutes, but I'll cover up for it. So, to start with a quick introduction about myself. I work as an independent security researcher, uh, and my areas of interest are web, IoT, mobile, and cloud security. I have been doing a lot of bug bounty and have been featured in Hall of Fame of EFF, General Motors, STC, Sony, and few others. I've been speaking at different conferences, some of them being B-Sides Delhi, RSA APAC, RSA US, and B-Sides Ahmedabad recently. I've also been very active in blogging and talking at local meetups and chapter meetups, especially to OWASP and null community. I also lead the chapter for Peerless Delhi NCR and Test Tribe. So yeah, that was like a short intro about me. To start with, like this is a brief agenda what we will be talking about today, and it basically includes like how you should approach, how you should plan out an AWS environment pen test, which starts from basically looking into enumerating the second pointer, then moving on to three majorly used services which are like EC2, S3, and IAM, which is like by default you have to use an IAM. Then we will be looking at an audit script and couple of resources that you can use for doing a proper pen test on an AWS environment. So, yep. So I've kind of divided it into four parts. The very first part being enumeration, which is the most important step in a complicated and a deep environment, or a big and complicated environment like AWS, specifically for big organizations, because they can have huge chunk of instances, huge chunk of other resources inside their accounts, and it can become a bit messy when you start pen testing an AWS environment. The next one is like S3 buckets, which can be used for storing files, logs, or even hosting some static websites for internal and external purposes. Followed by IAM, which is again one of the most important aspect, because you would need different kind of accounts inside your organization's account to manage developers, DevOps people, and maybe security architects and few business users. Then at last you have the actual application or database and things like that running on EC2 instances, and that would be covered in analyzing EC2 and securing VPC. So yeah, so the very first step is checking all the AWS services being used in an particular account that we are trying to pen test, and that would, like, mostly I use a tool which is like an open source tool called as AWS Inventory, and if you look closely, it's more of like once you run this tool, you get a proper listing of what all services are being used, like ELS, SES, CloudTrail, and even if you go down and dug in deep, you have things like EC2, and like they are being segregated based on the regions, and you get even very granular details like network ACLs and things like that. This can actually help you plan out or make a note of all exact services that are being used in the current account, and maybe plan your next steps of pen testing, which we will talk about in the coming slides. Yeah, so it would be like the second step in the pen test of an AWS environment, in which you should check for these three things. I'll explain why these three services or features for sure. So CloudWatch would be used for checking what all alarms and incidents are being raised in your account. Followed by CloudTrail, which is more of like getting access to the logs or detailed logs for each and every service. Followed by the last and third point, which is like billing alerts. This can help in case of lot of detection and at times even in prevention, because suppose you have a general pattern wherein your day-to-day usage is limited to say $10, $12 a day. You can set up billing alerts if that usage is exhausted or is being crossed. so that you get an idea that there are either a lot of instances or services running, or there is a lot of consumption of data inside your account, or it could be an early alert to something like an DDoS or something on your whole infrastructure. So you can get an early indication using billing alerts. You can also stop some of the mischievous activities. Maybe somebody would have gotten access to one of your EC2 instance, and you might get an early indication that, okay, there is a billing alert which kind of signifies something like that. The third step, which is more of like now we have enumerated and made a note of all the services being used. The second step was checking if few of the services are enabled or not. The third step would be checking the detailed configuration of each and every service being used. You can do it segregatedly for different services. You can have some common pointers around different services. At the same time, you can also have approach wherein you are just making a note of few of the services, and then which like I do in my case, like making a note of major services being used, be it EC2, be it S3, and then panning out to other services which might be a smaller chunk of the whole usage pattern. So yeah, the third step. And as I mentioned, like making note of services interacting with each other is the fourth step, and we will make a note of a lot of services. So there might be an EC2 instance that might be interacting with a S3 bucket. There might be a IAM user interacting with a lot of other services or access rights, which might get identified in the fourth step, and that will help us analyze and check the interconnection between these services. And the final and the most interesting step, which is like starting the pen test. And now the real fun starts, because we will be looking at how exactly one can go about pen testing these services one by one, and not to miss out on anything when doing a pen test in AWS environment. So yeah, so the very first and foremost thing when you create an account in AWS, it's like you get a root user created by default, but you might not be using that root account mostly, or you might need more accounts to be configured in your environment. So the very first step should be, how do you manage your AWS accounts? Do you have it installed as an application on your phone and you use it to check resources? Do you have something like a two-factor authentication enabled for most of the accounts and things like that? Then we always have different teams working in an organization, be it DevOps, be it the developers, be it the security people, or the business end of users who just need to uh, have a check that, okay, this is what we are doing right now. So we can always segregate users and create user accounts, and maybe by default never use the root account. We'll talk about the repercussions of using a root account later. Uh, I talked about MFA already, and then once we create users, you can always have users under a group, because applying policies to a group is a lot more easier and a lot more effective, and will help you from situations wherein you might end up giving an excessive privilege to one of these users, because you are putting all the permissions on a group. You can always have a check on regular intervals. Uh, Next step is something like a role. Role is something that is being managed by AWS itself. So suppose you need an AWS EC2 instance to interact with a S3 bucket. The ideal practice should be not to give credentials or put across credentials on the EC2 instance, but rather give a role to the EC2 instance. What does that role mean is that you can provide which kind of privileges that EC2 instance need to have with other services, say like a S3 bucket or something, and AWS will by itself keep on rotating the credentials or the access key and secret key for this role every 15 minutes. So even if somebody gets access to one of the access keys and secret keys, they won't be able to use it after 15 minutes, which is like a very good way of rotating, because there isn't any other automated way of rotating keys that regularly. So that could be a good way of doing it. Then billing, as I mentioned earlier, setting up billing alerts is like a good practice. And then we have something like environments like dev, staging, or a production environment, and having segregated users only accessing the environments they should be allowed to work in. So the tool, so any of the tools that I will be covering are all open source tools. You can very well easily find them. And the tool that I use for enumerating IAM is basically Principal Mapper. It's basically a script, and it lets you identify risk and gaps inside an IAM configuration of your account. It also helps you identify which all users and roles have what kind of privileges, and it helps you at the end of the day in securing sensitive resources like S3 objects or PII on these instances. So I'll talk about what exactly this is. Let's see. So once you execute a principal mapper, you get a proper graph for your account. So if you see here, you see something like this, and you see all of the resources and actions compared to what all entities are accessing it. So we have some like a EC2 role, an admin, and then we have something to which it is interacting with. This kind of helps in lot of scenarios. If you just scroll across it, this is like a very exhaustive uh, mapping wherein you get access to or an insight to each and every individual, accessing each and every individual resource and action. This can help you in situations like, it can help you like getting an insight in some cases wherein you might have created an IAM user, say Ankit, and you have an S3 bucket by the name, say, production environment, and it contains all of your logs, backup files, and code, and you have not given indirect access to this user Ankit to access the S3 bucket production environment. But what happens is that you have an EC2 instance running, and Ankit can access that EC2 instance, and that EC2 instance can directly access the S3 bucket for making calls, uploading files, downloading files, making some deletions, modifications. So this kind of graph will actually help you in identifying those cases, because the user Ankit did not have direct access to the S3 bucket, but indirectly it can access the S3 bucket via an EC2 instance, which could not have been easy to detect or map if you do not have something like this, because it can easily help you see the hops and see what all entities and resources are connected, which could be a very good way of getting a first step into, you know, analyzing where you are lacking in implementing security for an IAM user or a group. I had this huge chunk of text because a lot of people reference these slides, so it's just for reference purposes, and I hope I have explained it in crisp and short manner. Talking about few of the pointers, once you are pen testing an AWS environment, you might get an read-only account to be able to enumerate or know more about the AWS account itself. So you should be looking at some of the things, like you should always look for accounts with full or complete privileges. You should check for access keys directly embedded into code, which you might still find on the internet. A lot of people have their access key and secret key embedded in their code and pushed to some public repository like GitHub, which is like a disaster in most of the cases. You can also look for access keys being used in AWS CLI. CLI for AWS is just like a command line interface to access the whole of AWS account. The better practice in this case is to use a profile instead of entering the access key and secret key for every command. You can always configure a profile and use that profile for executing all of the commands, because it does not leave a trace of your access key and secret key on the console itself, which is a safer practice to be used. You can also see that different access key and secret keys are being provisioned for different application or environment as per your usage. Uh, you should always check for rotation policy for access keys. There should not be some ideal access keys residing in your account with full or even a limited privileges and nobody is using it, because there are high chances of them being getting leaked or not being managed properly. Uh, you should always look for unused access keys, because again, it could not be that there might not be proper individual or a team looking after those credentials. So again, the chances of compromise increases. You should also see something like a double factor authentication or a multi-factor authentication is enabled for most of these sensitive operations, be it launching instances, be it deleting a bucket and things like that, because it always adds an extra layer of security when an sensitive operation is being done. Okay, the second part, which is like the most interesting part according to me. So S3 buckets are basically a storage solution from AWS. They help you host a static website. They help you put up a lot of logs, files. It could be some uh, files like JavaScript, image file required for your website, which might getting fetched from an S3 bucket. So, and it's like a very dynamic pricing model. You only pay for what you're using, similar to other services from AWS. But a lot of people may not be using the whole of AWS account or the whole of AWS services, but still they might be using S3 buckets for storing files, because the pricing and the flexibility is a lot. You can also have something like a Glacier inside a account, which can be used for archiving logs and things like that. So this is kind of the most used service inside an AWS for even users who don't use exhaustively AWS. And the perks or the chances of you finding something inside this account is a lot. So we'll look into how and which tool or what is the exact way of looking into this. So I use a tool which is again an open source tool called as S3 Scanner, and this S3 Scanner is a command line tool which can be used to it also has a by default word list file, but you can always provide some custom word list file for your own use, and you can always customize it up to the level that it not only identifies public buckets. If you provide a list, it will go on and check for ACLs on that bucket. It can check for read write permission on the bucket objects. It can also check for few cases wherein it can also help you download the data from that S3 bucket. So it's like an exhaustive tool for S3 scanning and pen testing, and these are the different settings available for buckets inside this tool. Yeah, so it checks for mainly three or two type of permissions that can be set on an S3 bucket, which can be user having an account on AWS, like an authenticated user. It can be checked or configured for a user who is not on AWS, so like a public user without AWS credentials set. They can also be used for specific AWS users accounts and IAM accounts, but that's currently not our motive to discuss. Uh, Now, one of the interesting things that I have analyzed in S3 buckets is that there might be a case you might be getting access denied error when you are trying to access a particular object inside a bucket, or you are just running this tool on the entire of the word list, but you can still get a lot of information like listing ACL of these buckets. So suppose you get a bucket named ABC, and you are trying to access a file that says like access denied and something like that, but then it shows you the ACL of that bucket. Now that ACL contains something like allow uh, allow for all asterisk, like for all the users on the internet, to a particular file or a folder like a JavaScript file or a code file, which you might have missed if you might have just taken the access denied as the last resort for you, and you might not have gone that deep. So getting even the ACLs is a big thing in a lot of bigger environments, and at times helps a lot in bug bounties, because it can help you, dig in deep into a particular direction and not like go around and trying to find the exact ways you can get an access inside the buckets. So yeah, so since we have talked about attacking these S3 buckets, this is where we need to understand where it actually starts from, or like where is the exact lag from the people configuring these S3 buckets. So the S3 bucket has operations or set of operations like get, list, put. As their name suggests, they are mostly used for either fetching a file or pushing a file to the bucket. and there are like bucket names which are like resources, and you can have these principals which are like user accounts or IAM roles accessing these resources. So by default a policy looks something like this, and uh, if you see something like the principal which is like an user Dave in this case, and then we have some of the actions like get list, get bucket location, list bucket, and get object, and then we have a resource like example bucket for which we are setting these policies for. Okay, so now we have gone through IEM, we have gone through S3 buckets and pen testing them. The third and the most important thing to look out for is an EC2 instance. So you might get a lot of IP addresses, or you can get a lot of EC2 public DNS being revealed on the internet, or even you are trying to interact with a lot of websites. And the next step for you could be to check what exactly is the security posture of an EC2 instance, because at the end of the day a database or an application server may be relying on the fact that EC2 instance is taking care of all of that. So you should check for open ports, which can be done through either using something like a generic tool like an nmap, and running an nmap with trying to find an open ports, uh, what kind of traffic is allowed, and things like that. But inherently AWS have something like an AWS inspector, which is not a new tool, but AWS inspector has gotten this new functionality wherein you can set it up enabled for a particular instance when you are actually launching that instance. And as you can see in the screenshot, that if you have enabled this feature, they have a particular pricing for enabling this feature on, and the pricing model is basically per hour basis for using this feature as well. But where it helps is basically that it can help you find out what all open ports are there, followed by what exact process is running on that particular port. So say we have something like a port 22 left open, which can be a open invitation to a lot of hackers to get inside your system. So the screen will kind of show you something like a process like SSD is listening on TCP port and is reachable from the internet. So you have actually made a goof up in configuring the inbound and outbound connections on this particular instance, and you can always go ahead and mark it as a finding from a pen tester's perspective. From a DevOps perspective, you can go back and restrict the access to few of the IP address or IP address range or maybe something like that. And it also gives an recommendation. It says that edit the security group this that you are using to remove access from internet on port 22. Another thing that you should be looking for inside an AWS account when you are assessing the security posture of an instance EC2 is that you should always check if a termination protection is enabled, because there are a lot of times there are deletion or termination of instances accidentally or on purpose, or there might be a case you might wanted to terminate some other instance and you ended up terminating something else. So having something like a termination protection always prompts you twice before actually doing it. And you can also have something like a MFA for such sensitive operations. And then you can always check for access control changes for any EC2 instance, like if you have added new users, you have removed users, and things like that. You can also check the logs, and you can check some filters for the logs. Suppose you have new user added to the entities that can access the EC2 instance. You can create a filter and generate alerts whenever something like that happens, and you will get a SMS notification via SCS or SNS service of AWS, or you can get an email notification that might help you in generating alerts at the right time. Yeah, so since we talked about attacking the EC2 and the security groups, by default, or a basic idea about security groups, they are basically meant to configure outbound traffic like where should the traffic be going outside from an EC2 instance. They are always permissive. You can never set deny permissions. So whatever you set is a permission set for that security group. So if you need to deny something, you just don't enter it inside the security group. You can add and remove groups at any point of time. You can always have a combination of port, protocol, and the source from which it originates, so that you can go even that up to that extent that if you have a EC2 instance that is managed by a single individual, and that individual sits inside the office and needs to access that particular EC2 instance from a single IP, you can even do that. And if you need that whole of your office should be able to access this instance, you can provide a complete IP address range or a subnet for your office, and you would be good to go. Yeah, so this was like a brief intro about security groups and EC2 and how does it works in combination together. So mostly we have seen the offensive part, and we'll quickly go to best practices, but I'll try to have it at the end of the presentation, and before that I'll try to show you something else. So for solutions in securing and auditing these AWS environments, we have something like hardened AMIs or hardened images from CIS, which are kind of an indication of a secure operating system for your EC2 instance. If you also have white paper from AWS, you also have something like top 10 AWS security best practices, and a lot of resources on the internet. I even have a couple of talks for securing AWS environments, or top 10 or best practices in configuring an AWS account, which is from a defensive perspective. Yeah, so this is the arsenal I use, which is, if you just search for my arsenal of AWS security tools, this is something that I use, which is from offensive, defensive, auditing, logging, monitoring, all perspective, and the categories are defined very specifically. Also, they have all the set of tools. So as I mentioned, PMapper for IAM mapping, something like AWS inventory I use for enumeration, uh, Prowler, which is something that we will talk in a while, and which is something very important in doing a lot of AWS assessments. So I'll talk about audit script, which is like a Prowler. You have similar set of tools or open source scripts that do similar tasks, but I majorly use this tool because of the exhaustiveness and the support, because it uses a CIS benchmark directly. So before even talking about the features, I'll quickly show you a video. I hope it works. Yep. So yeah, so we have kind of provided the AWS credentials to this command line tool, and then we are trying to uh, launch this tool and see what exactly it does. So I'll just resume the video and let's see what exactly it does. So we have provided the access key and secret key. We'll quickly go into an location wherein you want the results to be saved. So it also generates a report which helps you in getting an exact idea, and talking specifically, it marks everything in 3 colors, like a red color for a sure shot security gap, an amber color for a warning, and a green for a safe implementation. So yeah, so finally we are executing the tool Prowler, and as you can see, it is telling you what account you are using it on. It started with a lot of IAM password policies, IAM policies, and so yeah, once it gets completed, we'll talk about each and every segment specifically. Now it is looking into the part wherein it is looking for a tool, or inside the tool AWS config. Config is like a change management tool. So whatever changes you do, it presents everything in a graphical manner. So it is just checking the protection on that. Uh, yeah, it is going inside KMS which is like a key management service for AWS. It can be used to store credentials, keys, access files for different services like EC2 instance or even your AWS account itself. Now you can see things in Amber as something which is like a warning, and then a lot of reds which is showing you that you have like you are missing out on something. So you don't have an alarm for VPC changes. VPC is like a closed cloud, like a small cloud inside your account, and everything inside a VPC can interact with each other. And you can also have the capability wherein you restrict the usage of outside resources from this VPC. So it will help you list things like that. So security groups, as we were talking about, so you have something like source set as 0.0.0/0, which is like the whole of the internet, is able to access the port 22. For different ports, it will just keep on marking this. It is also checking if the VPC has got something like logging enabled, so you don't miss out on the logs at the end of the day and you are not able to, get into your account and exactly change what is wrongly configured. Yep. So the tool has completed running. So yeah, this is what it does in a nutshell. And the motive here to show this was basically to get an idea where exactly it can be used and where exactly it can be very effective when you're doing an AWS assessment. So it can be a very first step of like starting a pen test, because you get an exact idea wherein there are gaps and wherein you need to go into the exploitation part, which at times pen testing in AWS environment, you might end up missing a lot of things. So a report from Prowler or a result from Prowler can be a base to start your pen test, or can be a midpoint once you are doing an assessment to analyze what is your progress in the whole assessment and which are the areas which are still left to be assessed properly. So you can do identity and access management checks, you can do logging, you can do monitoring, you can also check the networking connections inside your AWS account. You can get a colorish or a monochrome report, uh, which can be a PDF or something, right, or can be a CSV. You can run specific checks, you can run multiple instances of this tool on different accounts at the same time, and it generates reports for everything specifically. So it's like a very good tool in an AWS assessment. And as I mentioned, it's based on the CIS Amazon Web Services benchmark 1.1, and it always gets updated based on the fact if there are some changes to the CIS benchmark itself, which is a good practice to be used. I'll go quickly back because I said I'll be going back to best practices. So talking about AWS best practices, yep. Uh, so it's like we have seen each of these, and now we are from an offensive side. Now we have to cover it up or have a summary of it at the end, wherein we see these pointers for people who are actually configuring the environment. So you have all of these as disabling the root and access key. So why it is very necessary not to use root access key, because if someday you end up losing your root access key or root credentials, you won't be able to get access back to your AWS account. On the other hand, if you have created a user inside the root account, like an IAM user, and that account gets compromised, you can go very well use your root credentials to go ahead and deactivate, delete that particular user account. A root account is like the master key to the whole of the house, while an IAM account is like a particular room or something. So you should always keep it in a safe place and not essentially use the root credentials. MFA for each users, we have already talked about. Roles for EC2 instances. Rotate all the keys on regular basis. Do not allow public IP addresses to access your EC2 instance. Apply proper S3 bucket policies. Create all resources within a VPC and things like that. And some additional best practices that you can refer to later, and link as well for setting up alarm on your AWS account. So there can be different ways of implementing security inside a AWS account. A lot of companies have something like this, like a checklist, to ensure that they are not missing out on something. And this list can be even more exhaustive, but for a basic purpose, this serves the purpose of securing an AWS account and having a basic security posture in mind. With that, I think, do you have got questions? I can take them up. I have few minutes left, I guess.
Yeah, we have time for some questions, so if anybody has one, please raise your hand. Yes, one question over there.
Okay, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question?
Any other questions?
So I'm wondering, from your experience, would Prawler be something that you could also run every morning, filter the output and create reports to forward them to your DevOps teams, or are there too many false positives, whatever?
No, yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting point. So you can very well use it on a regular interval, because you can also set the report format to a diff format, wherein it just marks the changes that have occurred from the last report. So it's a very effective way of scanning the posture every couple of days. The false positives are not exactly there, because it directly takes the configuration from the AWS account. Yeah, so it's more of like it gives an indication wherein you should be diving in deep, and it's like an indication. It's not an exploitation framework, but like a security cloud suite to cover everything. Yep. Thank you.
We have time for some more questions, if anybody has some. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.